Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa Trong, and this is an introduction to Palette of Possibilities podcast. Now, this name might change around, but this really is just an episode that's an introduction to me and to why I started this podcast. So, to get things started, for all of these episodes, nothing is strictly scripted. So, I might prepare a couple of notes, and you might see me looking at a couple of notes sometimes just to refresh on what I want to say. But really, these podcasts are meant to be real, meant to be on the spot, improvisation, whatever you want to call it, but real. And so I wanted to start with myself. I am an incoming sophomore right now, and I am an only child who loves to socialize, loves adventure, loves fantasy. I used to do acting, and so I may be a little bit out there sometimes with my exaggeration, my facial expressions, but that's not a bad thing. And what else? A fun fact about me is that I don't drink a lot of water. Now, you might be thinking, why is this girl a little random? Well, this is a little bit of my problem, but kind of my strength. If I was to describe myself, I'd definitely include that I was a bit spontaneous. But more of the introduction of me, I enjoy playing basketball and exercising. I have a pet turtle, and I enjoy the urban life. So that's a little introduction to me, and you can ask anything you want and I'll see if I can answer them. But the main purpose of this episode is to give an introduction to the podcast. And first off, I want to start with how I got there. But podcasting hasn't always been on my mind. To be honest, I actually started with being interested in business. And this was back in 7th grade where I started a school project. And I wrote my own little book on anti-bullying, which I haven't published. I really want to though. And then I have another mini business that I started, and it was called Apple and Harmony, and I sewed stuffed owls and I knotted bracelets that would be, when they were sold, part of it would be donated to anti-bullying causes. And so that is a really important cause to me because I used to be bullied when I was in kindergarten all the way until 5th grade. And this really means a lot to me when I feel like I need to help those that are being victimized. I need to stand up, or I want to be a part of those people who stand up for what is wrong, basically for justice. But aside from this, after I took a little break, I joined WIT, or Whatever It Takes. It's an online teen entrepreneur and tween entrepreneur course, and also a community where it's based in San Diego at University of California, San Diego. There are in-person courses, but right now, because of quarantine, I have joined the online courses. And when I first joined, I was so indecisive about what business I wanted to start. I knew that I was interested in entrepreneurship, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I just kept on going through ideas and saying what causes I liked. I am big on education, especially in low-income places, and having the resources that you need. I'm also big on, of course, a big problem that a lot of people know, which is world hunger, or hunger, again, for the low-income places, as well as the food insecurity. So that is kind of what drove the business that I started. It was called Palate of Possibilities. And right now that's what I'm going by, but the name can change. And why did I name it that? Well, if you shorten Palate of Possibilities, it shortens to POP, P-O-P. And there's never a specific reason why I chose for it, but there could be pop could mean so many things. Pop could mean the culture, the pop culture of music. It could mean just the feeling that there's a new surprising essence, or just imagine a bunch of colors popping out of a sky of gray or black. It means surprise. It means childhood and innocence in some way, where think about bubbles popping, right? You just get to play around with things. You see the light refracting off of the round surface and you see a rainbow. You see a bunch of colors. And going back to the name Palate of Possibilities, it was a play on words, palate as in your mouth, and palette as in the art palette. And that was because I am more of an art-oriented person, and I love to cook, bake, explore, and I never follow the book. Now, I'm not going to say I don't follow the rules, but I'm going to say when it comes to cooking and when it comes to baking, I usually kind of veer off on my own and start making whatever I feel like. If I'm making a cookie dough, I'm definitely changing the proportions, definitely changing the flavor. So that's the kind of person I am. And with so much opportunity to try and find and explore what you want to do and everything that's out there in this world, I'm really grateful for that. So that is kind of why I chose Pop. Also, I was trying to find a name that didn't already exist, but it does have meaning. It has meaning to me, and Pop is just another way of showing spontaneousness. But anyways, going on, after the purpose of Pop was to help educate people on the benefits and the kind of nutritional facts of ingredients, or maybe ingredients that people didn't know well and maybe they didn't know how to cook with them. And so it was to educate and also encourage people of all ages, probably around my age, which is teens, or as I said, I'm a high schooler, encourage them to just maybe take on cooking or maybe experiment, explore. And also a big part of it was to share the culture of food. And this is because I am big on culture. Another fun fact about me is I'm big on languages. I am very interested in learning about the history of all types of ethnicities and their histories. And it's just so fun to share with other people how food and different ingredients and different uses, different methods can be so useful, so important, and so special and unique to that family, that person, that whole culture. And so when we share things, we get to learn things as well. And so that's just what's so magical about culture to me. And I am a person who loves all social things, loves all cultural things, and I don't think that'll ever change. But moving on, Pop was an Instagram community. I posted pictures of food that I made, and I also shared a couple of cultural dishes that some other people have shared with me through Google Forms, and I posted that, had a couple of comments, some views, some likes, but I felt like this wasn't my thing. And now I know that Palette of Possibilities, the fact that it's called possibilities, which means when you think about art, there's so many possibilities. Art is basically a way of communication, a way of expression. And so art is music, it's writing, it's the way that you portray yourself and your beliefs and your feelings, your thoughts, whatever you want it to be, art can be it. And so I just felt like Palette of Possibilities didn't have all that it could have, or basically didn't reach its full potential. And so I took another break. And then, I'm sorry, this is a long story until I get to why I'm podcasting, but this is the purpose of this introduction. And so moving on, I realized that I should join WIT again. And so I did. Now I'm currently in WIT, and I might be changing the content in Palette of Possibilities. I'm thinking of reselling. I'm thinking of doing a podcast. Why not do both? But for now, I have this love of talking, if that's what you could call it. But I enjoy speaking, interacting, and so on. And so with this podcast, it really gives me a chance to share something and share my thoughts, because I'm a very curious person and I have a lot of questions in mind, a lot of topics that I want to talk about. But again, this is just the first episode. So this is just an introduction and I'll keep getting on it. Now, I chose this podcast because the purpose of it was to share whatever I was curious about, but mainly to discuss on topics that I think are hidden or that are underacknowledged, or maybe look deeper into situations that people might not notice or people might not care about or want to address. And so, with the topics that I have, I hope to have some guests over or just speak by myself, have a mix of both, and just bring awareness to different topics that I feel are important. And if you guys who are listening, if you guys are listening, I hope if you have anything that you want to hear, let me know. I will create right now, after this podcast, I'll create a place where you can send feedback and just some ideas, and it'll be posted on the Instagram where you will see a lot of food posts, but that's okay because Palette of Possibilities is in the process of changing. But there will be a link in the bio at the Instagram at Palette of Possibilities. And so that is kind of where I got with business. I have always wanted to do a product, sell a product, design something. Now I'm okay with graphic design. I want to learn Photoshop. I want to learn more video editing, but I do have time and I hope that it'll come as I learn. But for now, I think I want to try podcasting. So let me know if anything is interesting because I have some ideas and I'd love to start podcasting on them. But first of all, this is just a general question. What is podcasting to you? It could be a series of audio files. It could be a series of videos. It could be unrelated or all related under a theme. And so for me, that's something I want to discover because as I see this podcast, I'm using it as an opportunity to use my curiosity to answer a bunch of questions and talk about a bunch of topics, but they might not all be related. And that's what makes it a little quirky. You see, because of my indecisiveness a bit, a lot of these podcast episodes might be not to your liking, not to your preference. You don't have to listen to everything. That's okay. And that's what feedback is for. So I'd really appreciate if you had any feedback to share it with me. And for my last words, I just wanted to say thank you for listening if you've been with me all the way, and I can't wait to share more. Bye. By the way, I know that all of these lines in my background are showing. Now, that is a problem that I want to see if I can fix. The recording on my computer is a little off, and that's what comes with all these podcast episodes. The feedback on what to do, maybe ways that I can fix the problems on my computer or make it less distracting while I'm talking or interacting with guests and so on. And I will be constantly trying to improve this podcast and trying to make it more professional, I guess you could say. Now, this isn't supposed to be super professional, right? Of course not. This is supposed to be something that is a welcoming atmosphere and somewhere that anyone can talk about what they are really feeling. Because I don't want you to hold back. If you're on here on this podcast, on Palate of Possibilities or whatever it's called in the future, I want you to say what you're really thinking. Because I don't want you to hold back and be someone who you're not and pretend to say something that isn't really what you're thinking. And so that's all I have.